to be here for Wawa Weewa Wednesday.
No, it's not Wawa, Weewa Wednesday.
That's correct, Wawa Weewa. All right, let's see. So I'm gonna start with, oh, whoops, what's going on? Why am I not? I'm not logged in here. What's going on? Something's going on. Wait a second. Hang on. Ah. Okay. So Bloodnose is here. Sneezer is here. Let's see. Sorry, I'm. For some reason, I'm not able to. It's not. Hold on. Here we go. That's my channel, not the other channel. I've had several channels in my day. Okay, here we are. And I'm going to get to a comment or two. At least that's how I'll start, because I've been starting recently with the chats, but I want to go for a couple of comments, and I still have so much to do, and there's so much chat here already. Hello. Wow. Okay, that's just now. Okay, wow. I'm honored and humbled to come here and see so much chat going on. All right, now the chat here on my end is beginning at 7:33 p.m. with Sneezer, but it looks from what it says that he's replying to somebody who's already in the middle of a discussion. So I don't have all of the chat, but I do have now with Bloodnose saying, "What did the ocean say to the beach? Thank for all the sediment." Does sediment mean two things? What did the ocean say to the beach? Thanks for all the sediment. Okay, if there's a double meaning there, which makes it a dad joke, I don't get it. I don't get it. He started the chat with a lot of Hebrew and a question about a word. Hello, hey! Hi, Pa. Greetings, says Ariel Marshall. And Robert is here. Robert, the video that you wanted me to publish here, to put in the description, the link, on the 10 lost tribes, so it's in the description of this very video. Okay. So a couple of comments that I wanted to read, to address. Let's see. First of all, there was finger wagging. The Canadian Rastafari mentioned finger wagging. And for me, I've always known finger wagging to be something like a holier-than-thou condescending sort of thing, like, But BMXers, he's more versed in the Rastafari lingo, and if it does indeed have to do with it. And he said that finger wagging is actually a positive thing in Rastafari culture. He says finger wagging for most Rastafarians is a good thing, as they say, each one teach one. I did not know that, and that's finger wagging. It's interesting, right? Difference of cultures, right? I'm used to it being on the negative side, and apparently it can also be a positive thing, where it's to teach, not to scold or reprimand or try to give any, right? Not to rebuke, but to teach. That's to finger wag. So it's a nice way of looking at it. I never did. Okay, let's see. Didiao said you can capture a fart under a blanket, but you can't put it back from where it came. Didiao coming in hot. You can capture a fart, right? A Dutch oven, of course. Now, I don't think I've ever been subjected to one, nor have I subjected another to one. Tell me, good people in the chat. YouTube says 25 people are here right now. Have you ever been subjected to, or have subjected another to a Dutch oven? Do share. I want to read your Dutch oven stories, if they're borderline, not too graphic, mild. Of course, if you're describing the farts, then be as graphic as you want. That can be poetry in motion. Yet both are made of consciousness. Are you talking about a fart or about the dust? It came from dust, says Sneezers, and to dust it returns. That's called a shart. Earth and wind are different elements. Oh, who was it? The joy of farting? Oh, who was it? Not Wilson. What was his name? Farting, the joy of farting. Who wrote the book? One of you knows. Okay, let's see. Okay, so a couple of comments from... Right, liberate the chillent, said Ariel Marshall in a comment. Okay, I would love to live in Israel, said Rebirth. What's the best way to learn Hebrew? And is it fine and possible to live in Israel with just a simple job such as retail? So I told him, you'd have to ask somebody who learned Hebrew. Since I'm a native speaker, I wouldn't be able to know if it's difficult or hard. It seems really hard, but I wouldn't know, nor would I know the best way to go about it. I would definitely not know. And I said a simple job in retail, sure, if you live way below your means, but most retail jobs, like low level, are minimum wage, and that's not ideal. And I said, it's been a long time though since I worked retail, thank God, that I don't exactly know where it is now. Could be that the conditions and the pay are much, much better. I mean, I was a backroom guy in a clothing store, and I worked in a record store, and I worked in a toy store, and I worked in, I've done some retail in my life. There was another here. Okay. Mark Johnson. Mark Johnson said, I won't read the entire comment, I'll sum it up, I guess. The God discussion can be a minefield. There should be distinct terms and titles to account for all the creepy little variables when we try to identify and share ideas about such an austere being. So he goes into different facets of God. He says, A, there's the paternal, B, there's the garden lord, and C, there's the first speaker. And he gives the attributes and examples of each one of these three. And with the third one being the first speaker, the God that can speak everything into existence, and he likes it, he says. His whole magical routine is being carried out so he can have a nice kingdom to rest in, and the earth would be perfect, so he makes one. And he goes into it, and then he says, I like this God the best. He just creates universes and brings them to life, and then, is it just me? And brings them to life. And then enjoys the spectacle. No banishings or prohibitions or curses, and no angry words. Now, I told him that I don't know God, all I know is how God reveals himself to me. And those revelations, right, of God the first speaker, and God the garden lord, and God the paternal, those revelations, they are, none of them are God, but God is revealed through all of them. And in the different examples that he gave here, and the different wants and the different desires, what God wants, what God needs, how God acts, I said these are all ways of learning about ourselves, right? These are all ways of learning something about us. And as for I like this God the best, that's the Edenic God, not necessarily the garden lord, which he mentioned before, but I saw the third one as being more the Edenic God. But practically speaking, it is that garden lord which he mentioned earlier. He says, I'll continue reading a bit more of the garden lord. He said, walks around a lot and looks at stuff. He can make living things, but it's hard work. He has to work with clay and water and breathing into it, pulling a piece out to make another one. And then he keeps losing track of them. First Adam and Eve, where are you? And then they try to hide from him, covering their unmentionables. And then Cain and Abel, where are you? Where is your brother? And both events end in cursed exile, a grouchy old garden lord who is just cleaning out the bugs. So that's less Edenic, I suppose, at least in origin. And that first speaker, that third God he mentioned, is that origin, right? That revelation of God, that Yehi O, right? Let there be light. And he says, he continues, and he says, wait, hold on, yes. He says, I agree, he told me. I think the actions described in these episodes are divine occurrences that are the very traces of contours of the unfolding macrocosm, as it pours to and from the mesocosm of our little planet, of nations, cultures, and peoples, and pours to and from our inner lives, right? It's that idea of the fractal, right? Sneezer speaks of it. I've spoken of it before, that idea of the fractal contracting and expanding and going in and out of it, right? Breathing, in a breathing sort of motion. An eternal question, he says, Mark Johnson says, to an eternal answer to an eternal question, while both continuously transform into something else. And I'm jumping to the end of the comment, and he says, all petty judgments, bigotry, and religious persecution just seems like ignorant noise to me. And he doesn't mean that in a judgmental sort of way. He means it more in a way of misunderstandings, if you will, I think. Sneezer, maybe you'd get along with Mark Johnson 4217, who left this lovely comment. BMXers asked, why do they call it Erev Shabbat, which is Shabbat Eve? Shabbat ends at sundown. Well, it ends at sundown. Usually, for most people, it ends with the stars coming out, which is usually something like 30 minutes afterwards, after sundown. And I said Erev Shabbat is Friday. Motza'ei Shabbat is Saturday night. In both cases, it's not speaking of Shabbat, but of a time before, the eve of, and a time after, as it exits. Shabbat is something, a covenant that's fundamental, and we, as a people, as a nation, enjoy pouring some of Shabbat into Friday and letting some of Shabbat go into Sunday, right? Because the Hebrew day starts at night with the sundown, with the stars. So there's Erev Shabbat, Leil Shabbat, which is actual Friday night, which is the first of 3 meals, the day of Shabbat, right? And then the time of the third meal towards the sundown, and then Motza'ei Shabbat, where even though it's not Shabbos anymore, the name of Shabbos is still upon it. Just like in Erev Shabbat, the eve of Shabbos, it's Friday afternoon, it's not the 7th day yet, and yet it is associated in such a way with Shabbat, so Shabbat can be, the sacredness of Shabbat can permeate the weekdays, as it were. And he said, that makes sense now. Okay, let's go to the chat right now, see if there's new keyboard, still crappy space bar. Wow, how are you going to, I mean, I guess you gotta use it, right? You gotta, what's its face? You gotta, losing my English here. Anyway, you gotta work it in. Okay, so Nezer says, wait, about half of the scientific community these days ever hear of quantum physics? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, Yodidiao says who? Both are made of consciousness, right? Different elements made of consciousness, Sneezer said, and Yodidiao says who? Sneezer says about half of the scientific community these days ever hear of quantum physics. Then, of course, there is every scripture. All is mind. We live in a fractal to which we are each a frame, right? So the fractal, I didn't even know he was going to say that, but he did right now. Yodidiao says, all the scientific community agrees they can't define consciousness or know its origin. Not all of it, retorts Sneezer. Penrose, I'm assuming you wanted to write Penrose, for example, defines it as what collapses the wave function. The wave function of what? Of a light particle or any wave? Or of a wave of light? Sneezer says, as for its origin, its center, what exists before time, has no origin. The time's center is the origin of all temporal things. Time for now is here, says Yodidiao, and it shouldn't be wasted on speculation. It's not a speculation, Sneezer answers him, though through Occam's razor, it's the simplest explanation, right? So Occam's razor, which is basically a simple explanation, will usually do, even if there are complicated ones. The simplest explanation is usually the correct one. Or if it's not the correct one, it's... Do you read Torah, Yodidiao asks? How would you translate mecherotehem? Who are you talking to? You're talking to Sneezer or you're talking to me? Mecherotehem is that which was theirs, that which they owned, so to speak. That which was sold to them, that which was given to them. Hang on a second. Mecherotehem, that's Shimon veLevi achim klei chamas mecherotehem. Right, it's what they do. I guess that's what it means there. Sneezer says, no, I'm under the impression it's too archaic and encrypted to decode. But you understand quantum physics, asks Yodidiao. Sneezer says many of the words have been dis and rejoined. For example, something like spaghetti noodle turned into spaghetti noodle. And words changed to numbers to get the real meaning. Only God or an angel could. And he says, I have a rudimentary hobbyist experience with quantum physics. It is commonly said that if you think you understand quantum physics, you don't, and for good reason. 1 and 2 approximately equals 3. So I've been into astronomy since I was a boy of, let's say, 11 or 12, maybe even before that. And my parents bought me, in middle school, they bought me A Brief History of Time by Dr. Hawking, the late Dr. Stephen Hawking, Professor Hawking. And I read it in 7th or 8th grade, and I got a third of the way until it started to get, or maybe a quarter of the way, I don't know, before the math started to play into it, and it was difficult to comprehend certain things. And I read it later, again, after I got out of the army, so something like 10 years later. I understood more, but, and I understood more also because I studied a little bit of introductions, let's say, to Hasidism and Kabbalah. And the way that certain ideas in quantum mechanics, quantum physics correspond with the Hebrew language, correspond with the story of creation, correspond with the idea of the 10 Sfirot. It was, even on my basic ignorant understanding of the things that I'd read, I saw a connection there to the very origins of creation. Now, whether or not there'll be a grand unified theory, I don't know. That's up to the brainiacs to, I don't know. But it would be really, really something. And I think that will be a massive unlock, a massive, let's say, physical unlock, which may facilitate great spiritual change as well. And many times it's the other way around, where nothing happens in the physical until it is decreed in the spiritual realms. And this is the final stop. However, we here who are in a body, who have a soul, those who believe in such things, we are precisely the ones, through Torah, commandment, covenants, being a good person, what have you. We are able to affect, right, that top to bottom, bottom to top motion. Right, again, in and out, back and forth, up and down. And we are able to impact those spiritual realms and have a say in what goes on in this world here and now. I still love astronomy. I couldn't do the astrophysics even on a very basic rudimentary hobbyist level because I don't have the mind for math. Or I just simply don't enjoy it. I admire those who speak the language of math, but I, so far, am not, didn't attract me at all. I would argue it's the same with the Torah. If you think you understand it, you can be assured you do not. Or rather, you can understand it on a certain level, right? Shiveim panim laTorah. There are 70 different facets, faces to the Torah, 70 ways of interpreting it, let's say, just like the Zohar does with Tikkunei Zohar, where it's 70 interpretations of the first verse, and what the Ramchal did with the Tikkunei Zohar Chadash, which are 70 interpretations of the final verse. There are ways on looking at it throughout the Pardes, right? From the very, very face value verses and to the esoteric, mystical, Kabbalistic. In fact, harder with the Torah than quantum physics. So Neither says, I'm amazed how much HN understands mainly from the Torah. It's a certain disproof to my understanding. V'hamevin yavin, and he who understands shall understand, says Yodidiahu. Well, you're amazed how much I understand mainly from the Torah. Well, look, I grew up modern Orthodox in Jerusalem. You don't grow up and you don't go to religious schools and yeshiva and without picking up some things. And it's all about separating the relative wheat from the proverbial chaff. I understand that the Torah has been changed. I take it as such. And that's why it allows me to be a bit more flexible with my ideas and with what I do. And I'm a cafeteria person, right? I pick and choose. I cherry pick everything from the entire Torah, from the entire Bible, and I make no apologies. And that comes with a certain danger and a risk. But so far, it has led me, as I see it, and I might be wrong, to some understandings that were very significant to me. I don't pretend to have any truth, any unique take, It's just I found certain things through Torah that spoke to me on a really deep, fundamental level that even though the other world, the modern world, the secular world is always there, I'm always like, you know what? That's always there. I think I need to focus on this, at least for now. Though it may be a cultural thing like Quran says, Sneezer, only those understanding the culture and to some refinement, such as pure heart, can understand maybe. Or maybe he is just so blessed by Ruach, or none of the above. But, because like I said, maybe it's literally the indoctrination of modern orthodoxy, even though I'm not 100% orthodox now. I would love to be blessed by the Ruach, the Spirit. I would love to be able to understand, to be a little more refined, a man of culture, as you said, and to understand. Now, times I might be turning a blind eye, I become willfully ignorant, woefully ignorant. I agree, we've had this conversation before, Sneezer. Some things I'm not willing to let go of, for whatever reason, and maybe things in time will come. Yodidiao says, according to you, perhaps he's blessed by a fart. Oh, Yodidiao, I am blessed by so many farts. Or maybe a great flying spaghetti monster, Ramen. We are all blessed and touched by his noodly appendages, my crown prince. His noodly appendages. Yeah, I'm a fan of the flying spaghetti monster. I noticed how you mentioned great flying spaghetti monster. It has meaning, to be sure, which is a rather poetic description of the omniverse being cyclic and self-originating. How many timeline arms that with many timeline arms that intermingle all depends on your perspective. Yes. Wait, I said something to Mark Johnson before that. Hang on a second. I said it is the lens through which we are looking that determines that which is being revealed. So it's how you orient yourself and where you're guiding yourself and what you're doing with yourself. Or like you said just now, it all depends on your perspective. Gaining more perspective, being able to change one's perspective, that is a great blessing. It's like, yes, know your pillars, know your fundamentals, know your hills that you may die on or want to die on or feel you ought to die on. But the rest is so open and so fluid. And like you said, cyclic and self-originating. That's the human being in the sense of that we draw those understandings from ourselves and from around us. And it's a chicken and egg thing. And I believe that we all can change our perspective to some degree, and depending on our perspective, perceive that intermingling many timeline-armed spaghetti monster, as you put it, Sneezer. The God I've come to know, he says, made a bunch of creators to enjoy what we create, full of love and with a great sense of humor. Oh, I agree on the sense of humor for sure, that revelation of humor. My mother always says that God got really creative when he created the marine creatures, especially the deep sea creatures. He got really creative and with a sense of humor for sure. And then there's Alan Rickman, the late Alan Rickman, who in Kevin Smith's Dogma, what does he say? He says, when she asks what's God like, the protagonist, and he says, it's lonely, but funny. He says, take sex, for example. There's no funnier thing than the faces you ridiculous people make mid-coitus. Yodidiahu says, there's a midrash or something about a rabbi who sees prostitutes, and one time the prostitute farted and said, Rabbi, just like this passing wind won't return, neither will you return. Yes, it's Rabbi Elazar ben Dordaya, if I'm not mistaken. She was the finest prostitute in all the land, it's said. Wait, was it Rabbi Elazar ben Dordaya, or am I confusing it with the tzitzis that smacked him on the face? Hang on a second. Hang on a sec. Here we go, Menachot 41a. Menachot 41a. Now wait, is this Mishnah? No, it's the Talmud. Okay, so yes, that, the one with the 7 beds, that's tzitzis. And Rabbi Elazar ben Dodaya, I think, is the, hold on. But he did, actually. He did. Wait, Ben Dordaya. Rabbi Elazar Ben Dordaya, who's the prostitute farted, that whole thing. Hold on a second. Yes, okay. Haficha, that's right. And then and then he was able to repent and make amends, and he was able to be invited, let's say, to the coming world, to the world to come, the world that is coming towards us, however you choose to read it. So yes, now I'm curious, Yodidiao, it's not Midrash, it's Talmud, if I'm not mistaken. And how did you come across this tale of Rabbi Elazar ben Dodaya? He wasn't a rabbi when he was with the prostitute. He got the name rabbi after he died. Talk about humor. Well, as a father, I see exactly how early humor starts in a newborn. And it's always, with every child, it's always so lovely when they start to have a sense of humor, and you that's it. That's when it's, even if you're not sleeping, even if you're just going crazy. And with a newborn, sometimes you just are like a zombie for like a year and a half sometimes. And it's, even though they're not a newborn for a year and a half. And when there's humor, and this has to do also with, right, between couples and between family members, any people, humor is something that is so important, so fundamental to the human experience, that we start experiencing it immediately as newborns, like in a few months. You can start playing peekaboo, and laugh at something. Now, yes, there's also that psychological thing of the permanence of the object, and I'm not really gone, so there's that added value. But first of all, it's just seeing their face light up and their smile. I mean, a baby starts smiling pretty early, and then they start to learn what makes others smile and laugh, and they go with that. Humor is something which, the Jewish people and humor, I don't have to, that's it, I can stop right there. I love a good stand-up comedy gig. Maybe Yonah knows the story. Wait, Yonah, you mean me, because my nickname in film school was Jonah, so when I started this, and I wasn't sure if I should use my name or not, I used Jonah. Also because I felt it was me sort of in the belly of the whale, and this is me trying to sort myself out in the belly of the whale and emerge like Jonah. So, I also love how Jonah received prophecy. It's said that he wasn't a prophet to begin with, and he went on the holiday of Sukkot, the Feast of Booths, the feast of not the harvest, the last of the harvest. Before fall. And it's said that there was such a joyous celebration there at the temple, and he was so happy, and he had such good vibes, such good energies, that prophecy just landed on him right then and there. The prostitute made a good point the rabbi had not considered one of the problems with looking down your nose at people. Wawa, Weewa, says Yotidiao. People think I look down my nose at them because I explain as if I know. But what if they are wrong and I do? Then in fact I am lifting them up. Sneezer says, allowing them to rise above while I help other up to what allowed them to rise. Like one laying at the edge of a cliff, pulling hand after hand up so they can go live. If they prefer the chasm, they of course need not grab hold. But while they do not, others climb up and out. While there may be other levels, Sneezer continues, as I believe there to be, this is how Christians are suggested to resurrect others, to give the hope they've found to those without what? To those without, period. Wawa Weewa, says BMXers. Yonatan Achi, says Robert, one day you have to do a vid on Pashtun people being Bnei Israel. Well, the Pashtun, are they in India? Is that correct? Because we all know, said Sneezer, life without hope is hell. Hope is important. That's part of why the 13th principle of faith, according to Maimonides, is that I will expect Mashiach any day to come, even if he tarries. My favorite people in the chat, Yod Sneezer BMX, says Robert Harrison. Hugs, bro, said Sneezer. Don't forget Ariel. Kisses, says Yodidiao. HN gonna log in and be like, what the F? Wow, this is, oh, okay, so lovely, he says. And yes, it was such a lovely surprise to see all the chat happening before I even came here. Ah, forgot my bro Ariel. Anyone got their ham licenses? Asks Sneezer. Ham, I'm assuming you mean ham radio and not like pork or ham from a pig. No doubt any military like HN have it. Just got a $35 radio, so studying for broadcast. Ham radio. Very cool. Now, as I understand it, you're limited, right, in the bandwidth that you're allowed to broadcast in, lest you interfere with civilian and military infrastructure or communications. New keyboard, still crappy spacebar. What topic? Asks Sneezer. Robert asks Sneezer. What broadcasting? What topic? More listening after the fall. But I do want to practice before that, or wouldn't need the license. Bloodnose says someday. Hello, Bloodnose. I think I said hey to you. Some days you just can't get a word in edgewise. Some days you just can't get a word in edgewise? Which edge are we talking about? Bloodnose, said Sneezer. Robert Harrison, I knew we were forgetting another. That's right, Bloodnose, definitely. Sneezer says, back then dads had 3-4 kids, nowadays kids have 3-4 dads. Climate change, be crazy. So I've heard this is a real problem in the US. And that it basically goes back to the pill. It goes back, from what I've gathered, to the US government incentivizing single motherhood and making it really, really difficult, making it, let's say, easier to get up, to give up on wedlock. But is that, what do you people think in the chat? Is that people in the US? Is that actually the case? Bloodnose says, what did the ocean say? Oh, okay, so I read that one. And then here I am. This is where I joined. Here is where I joined. Hello, hello. Yod started the chat. Oh, I thought it said you because there was a smudge on the screen. Yodidiao, says Sneezer, started the chat with a lot of Hebrew and a question about a word. So please, unless you already did it, please do ask it again, a question about a word. Oh, I get Mecharotehem. I'm assuming that was it. Okay, so we spoke, oh, and he sees it. Okay, and he said it. All right. And here's Shimon Velevi. Right, so I saw it up there. And then I need to, how do you translate the word? Okay, so yeah. ועתה אל תעצבו ואל יחר בעיניכם כי מכרתם אותי הנה כי למחיה שלחני אלוהים לפניכם. Right, that's from my Torah portion. That's from my Torah portion by Yigash. Right, don't be sad. Torah, it mostly means sold, selling. Right, it has to do with selling or something you own through something that was not given but selling. KJB, hello, hello, hello. Irakus asked, what is your stand on conflict? I don't enjoy conflict, but if you're going to have it, you have to have it. And it's better to have the upper hand and be victorious in conflict. And as far as this conflict, I'm Israeli living in Jerusalem, so I am for Team Israel. However, I think Hamas are pieces of filth that should be removed from the world. And the ideology itself, you can argue, because that's an ideology, but the terrorists themselves should put down their guns, put down those rocket launching arrays or whatnot, surrender, release the hostages, and the war is over tomorrow. Cannot fight for peace, only understand for it, says Sneezer to Irakus. Tim Allen? Dougie Brimson? I know Tim Allen, but who's Dougie Brimson? אמרת כה אמר אדוני אלוהים לירושלים מחורותייך ומלזייך מארץ הכנעני אביך האמורי ואימך חיתית. Yes, is that Isaiah? Is that Isaiah? Not sure. BWS man says, is that a load-bearing wall behind you? Is it a load-bearing wall? No, it's not a load-bearing wall. Well, there... No, that one is not. I don't think it is. Tanakh, it can mean origins. Yes, what you were given, a certain origin of something. But, hey, why do you ask? David VFXX, nah, your beard cooked. Okay. I'm an ancient one, so to speak. What do you mean by cooked? Vikash Mishra, hello Vikash. Who is God then, and when was he created, and who created him? So, I don't know God, all I know is how God reveals himself to me. So, I know only revelations of God, so I don't know who God is. I don't know when he was created, if at all. He is the creator. And I do not believe that the creator has a creator. Also, is God he or she? Vikash asks. God has revelations in male and female. And in the different spectrum of male and female, if you will, where I speak of energy and divine revelation, not actual anatomy. Hi from Malaysia, Abik Peace. Hello, Abik, good to see you. Sneezer, yes, I would agree, the fractal breathes. Abik says, where are you from? I'm in Jerusalem, Israel. Vikash says, if God is omnipotent, then what was the use of creating us and this universe? So again, divine revelation is all I can speak of, and not God himself. So there is an omnipotent, let's say, revelation of God. It's a point of origin from which everything comes. But it's still not God himself, as it were. The use of creating us and this universe, according to tradition, is that God is omnipotent. And because God is omnipotent, right, and omnipresent and omniscient traditionally, the only thing that God lacks is lacking. The only thing that God lacks is some sort of wanting, something where God isn't, so to speak. And so, traditionally, according to one theory anyway, or way of thinking, we were created to be co-creators. That's why we are the image of God. And this universe was created for us to do good things with, and to have dominion over, and to master, and in mastering the physical, simultaneously mastering the spiritual, and bringing our divinity to the forefront. And also, we are created from dust and earth. And that element is a cold and dry and gravity influenced element. More so than other things, I mean. And so, it's that idea of the duality of man, of the animal side and the divine side, right? The body, the soul, the mind, and that whole thing, that is an analogy, right? The human being is kind of analogous to a divine revelation, and the more we learn of it, the more we learn of us. So that doesn't answer it, but it addresses it. What do you think, Vikash, or others in the chat? Is God he or she? Who is God? When was he created, and who created him? And if God is omnipotent, then what is the use of creating us and this universe? Sneezer says, yes, I believe most of the world's problems is all over misunderstanding. Sneezer says, God, to Vikash Mishra. BMXer says, Waza! Which again, I've never seen the movie and I haven't seen the commercial. Palestine or Israel. But it's not Palestine or Israel. It's Hamas or Israel. And free Palestine from Hamas. Free Gaza from Hamas. Free the West Bank from terror. Free this entire region from piece of crap terrorists. That's what I'm saying. But again, I'm Team Israel. God made everything out of God, Sneezer says to Vikash. Both, says Sneezer to Abik. By the way, Michael's favorite movie, Michael Scott, is American Pie 2. Did I see that one? I don't know if I saw that one. Pablo Escobar says Jesus is as real as moon landing. So hey, Pablo, who do you think did it? Do you think it was Kubrick who filmed the moon landing? Jesse Links, peace be upon you. Taylor is here as well. I'll bang the space bar till it gives in like I do all my women. I jest, says Sneezer. What is it? It's like a bottle of ketchup. You gotta just keep banging it and banging it and banging it. Sneezer says, do you believe in the multiverse? Oh wait, Taylor asked Sneezer, do you believe in the multiverse? So from knowing, we may have discussed this already, but from knowing Sneezer's, what he's revealed to us, I think he would, definitely. Because he's all about the fractals. BMXers with dreadlocks says, also, by the way, I'm glad you're reading comments in the comment sections again. Yes, well. One with all says we are all God. We are not our bodies. Right, so some followers of Jesus, of Yeshua, really do think this, and I say, no, there's a break here. We are revelations of the Most High, but are not the Most High. In the same way that we are not our bodies. Sneezer says, to Taylor, there are many multiverses, each a set of the omniverse, where everything that can happen happens exactly once. Vikash says, still, our human brain keeps on asking, there should be creation and destruction of God. There should be some point when God came to existence. Well, again, you're talking about words like creation, destruction, existence, point, a point. And those are all concepts that we deal with here in this world. And so we are looking at everything through the lens of this world, using terminology of this world and concepts and analogies and metaphors of this world in order to understand things which are not this world. Which means that they have a limit. There's a limit to what you can do with your speech, if the lens you are looking through is the lens of this world, which is where something like, let's say, the Zohar, the Torah as well, come into place. And they say, no, we're going to use terms in this world, but through them you will be able to widen your mind and your eye, or third eye, right? And you will be able then to elevate yourself to such a degree where new revelations will be able to make manifest to you, to express themselves to you, to be channeled through you. And even though you'll still be using that very same terminology, the limitations will narrow. Well, not the limitations will narrow. Your field of, your spectrum of view, right, and of analysis will widen. How you view this world and all the worlds that are connected with it in the tree of life. More and more of it is revealed to you. And so even though you'll be reading the same thing, the same Bible, the same Torah, the same Zohar, which speaks of things that we can conceptualize, at least to some degree, using terms that pertain to this world, a world of physicality, it's through them that we can awaken that spiritual side, and through many other texts for other people. I'm talking as a Hebrew man here, right? Torah. So when you speak of creation, destruction, existence, and a point of creation, of the Creator, these are all words and they have meaning here. And through them we can have certain understandings of what goes on in the higher realms. And in order to do that, at least from the Hebrew point of view, that's what the Torah, the commandments, and the covenant are for. And that's also why the Torah, right, it speaks the tongue of men. And it was written down by men. Caesar, you read books besides the Bible, asks Taylor? Caesar says each universe stems from an omniversal branch. That universe's center. Like channeled or spiritual books? Asks Taylor. I prefer to listen to them. So what, audiobooks? That's your thing? Jesse links, Yod-Hey, Vav-Hey, or Y-H-V-H holds everything together by his name. Yes, that's the root. That's the root of it. And even though it's not the higher, it's that root, it's that middle, that torso, right, of Tiferet that sends out its shoots. The Vav Ktsavot, right? And that all comes down here in this world. Down to the bottom of the tree of life. Ariel says, anyone here familiar with the Babylonian version of the Genesis story? Pretty fun take on the narrative. So at the time, and this must have been 15 or 20 years ago, maybe even 20 years ago, I'd say, I looked into the stories that were around at the time of when the Bible was taking place, as it were. Right? So something like, I mean Abraham and onward, really. Now they say Abraham was born in 1948 of the Hebrew calendar, and it's now 5,784. But the fact that the state of Israel was in the Gregorian 1984, and the birth of Abraham is dated to the Hebrew 1948, not 1984, 1948, that the state of Israel is 1948, and the birth of Abraham is 1948, according to tradition. I've always loved that. So I read at the time the Mesopotamian creation myth or story, the Babylonian one, the Nordic one, and Roman and Greek, and I wouldn't be maybe Aztec, Maya, like those ancient civilizations. I looked into it, not in depth at all, just a cursory glance. I wonder what they say. I looked at a few carvings, I looked at a few pots, online. And I remember that there are definitely similarities and things sort of crisscross and intertwine and then go off in their own way. But together it's all a very rich tapestry that it's like there are certain places where they meet, right? In different times, in different cultures, in different traditions. And in that way it really all is together, but it seems like it's disconnected. At a glance, it might seem disconnected. You look like an Autobot shat you out. Thank you. What would my name be? It would have to, if that's my origin, right? If an Autobot shat me out, what would I be? Earthstain? I guess Earthstain. And it also kind of sounds Jewish. And then after a few generations, they'll turn it into Earthstein. So let's go with Earthstein. I'm Earthstein, the Autobot. Dan, 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 dan. Caesar says to Eliel, yeah, not strongly though. Not like there is much to strongly know left. So the versions of the Babylonian one, not strongly enough. Okay. Assuming, of course, that it is not some kind of fabricated historical archaeology for the purpose of propaganda. Right, whenever I see or read about something like that, I always think of the Simpsons episode where there's an angel. Spoiler alert. They find an angel in an archaeological dig. The school is digging, I think, and they find an angel or something that looks like the bones of an angel. And it's just marketing. It's a good marketing stunt. Caesar says, wow, likewise, I read A Brief History of Time around 13. Well, look at that. We discover yet another thing in common. Vikash says, I'm a seeker. Just trying to get answer, not to offend anyone. Nobody is offended here. We have pretty thick skin in this chat. And you're welcome to seek. I am a seeker as well. So they call me the seeker. I've been searching low and high. I love The Who. Ugh. I fully understood it, except, of course, the math. Well, there you go. Vikash, welcome, as are we all. Right, so yeah, we're all here. Thanks, we're all seekers here. Thanks, everyone, says Vikash. Good to see you here, man. Good to see you. For me, A Brief History of Time was scripture disproving until I understood how it wasn't. Adam or Adam. Hi, Adam or Adam. I read Torah 13 for the first time, wish it have been Hawking instead. You know what? Yeah, you think so? Adam, if you're still here, why? Might I ask, why would you have rather read Hawking and not Torah at 13? What is the modern Hebrew meaning, in-depth meaning of Tiamat nowadays? So, if I'm not mistaken, Tiamat is what? The Mesopotamian goddess of chaos and death? Something like that. They say, I heard this in a Dr. Peterson lecture, they say, or it's on a podcast or whatever, he says, or he read the idea that Tiamat is connected to Tohu Vavohu, the chaos from which creation emerged, right? From which the light emerged. But Tiamat, first of all, spell it out in Hebrew if you can, because it depends on the spelling. Second of all, there is no modern Hebrew in-depth meaning to those words Tia or Taya and Mat. Mat perhaps has to do with death, Met, Mem Tav, which means death, or Mavit, Mem Vav Tav, which is death. Turgid Banana says, anyone ever tell you that you bear a striking resemblance to Rasputin? No. Though I have seen illustrations of Rasputin, and I can see where there's a resemblance. Though I don't think I'll have the same calling or fate as he. Jesse Links, the Quran says the earth was once one mass. Then Allah separated it, the Big Bang. So what, that initial singularity? Where it was the potential for earth, even if not de facto earth being there. Sneezer says, Adam, I think we should change religions after the first 10 years. After the first 10 years we should change religions. and then have with each and then have with each new science should come second, in my opinion. Wait, but not fully understand the Torah? Yes, I agree with that more. Hold on. I think we should change religions after the first 10 years, then halved with each new. Science should come second. Oh, okay, science should come second. So, I'm also a Torah first sort of person. And yeah, I mean, I'm more of a Torah first kind of person, but definitely don't knock science, you know. BMXer says to Vikash, my God is neither and both at the same time. Neither male nor female biologically, and both feminine and masculine. Yes, in his revelation. Babylonian Genesis has Ariel two masses. Marduk, who split the dragon Tiamat in two. Babylonian? That's Babylon? That's not Mesopotamia. Well, Mesopotamia later became Babylon, right? Or is it Assyrian? Which one am I thinking of? No, it's Mesopotamia. Right, and that's Babylon. Later. Jake Morales, what's up with them tunnels y'all had? Tunnels? Which tunnels are you talking about? If you are talking about the tunnels that were the Chabad people in New York, and Jake, please, what are you talking about? Jay the Goat says, I'm married. No thanks, man. What's that in reference to? What's that in reference to, Jay the Goat? Did I proposition the entire chat? If I did, then forgive me. Israel, Isis, Ra, El. The general says, okay, Isis, Rahel, and how do you mean that? Can you clarify what you mean? Isis is the Islamic state of Iraq and Syria. Ra is the sun god of Egypt, and El is a divine attribute and a name of God closely associated with the right hand, so with the right pillar. So what does that mean? Let me re-clarify that I am amazed how much Achan understands primarily from the Torah, not that what he understands is primarily about the Torah, that it's been his main source of studied truth. Yeah, that's how I understood it. That's how I understood it. Listen, it was a wonderful platform to leap off of, and a wonderful foundation and basis to get into other things. And it has so many rules and regulations and so many revelations of wrath and vengeance and curses. But once I was able to understand the fluidity of things more, I was able to come to the understanding that yes, all of that is there, but more than that, it teaches us what to do. It's what we ought not to do, how not to behave. Which means that, as they say, like 90% is just showing up. You know what I mean? So it is the main source of studied truth, but growing up Orthodox in Jerusalem, there's been a lot of Mishnah and a lot of Talmud, a lot of Halacha, a lot of Midrash, a lot of Agadah, right? Different myths and Midrash Agadah. And so, but what I understand that I would consider fundamental truths as I perceive them, then yeah, it's Torah, it's the 5 books of Moses, even though they underwent changes, and even though they were tweaked, and even though you can argue over the length of certain verses, and the melody in certain words, and so on. Don't cherry pick the comments. Speak on them tunnels, though. Okay, yeah, I'm going one by one, Jake. I'm going one by one, and you wrote this at 9:20, and it's now 5 minutes to 10. So I don't know if you, I don't know if...
We're done for 2 hours.
1 hour, my love. I said 5 minutes to 10. That means I started at 9. That means it's almost an hour. The truth is everywhere and easy to see when one knows it. So, Jake, which tunnels are you talking about? I mean, it was a half hour ago. I hope you're still here. Maybe somebody told you in the chat that I'll get there eventually. If you can prove, says BMXers, that you are somewhat almighty, then you are God. That makes some sense. Adam or Adam says, religion should not be at all. Torah is attempt to... Pardon? Torah is attempt to describe world, attempt to explain it. It shouldn't be religion. We got to continue to evolve, learn Torah and evolve forward. Religions stop us, right? So speaking of Speaking of Rastafari, so Haile Selassie, His Royal Majesty, His Imperial Majesty, he said that it was a great sort of error that organized religion kind of usurped spirituality. He says spirituality doesn't belong to anyone. Spirituality is something that's it's like an immediate and direct experience between us and the Most High on an individual level, on a universal and global level, on all planes of existence and consciousness. And the fact that religion is here, that's something that was sort of man-made, and it put it in a box. I'm paraphrasing what His Imperial Majesty said. And that he said that in there lies an issue, right? There's a problem there. But as I said about the Torah, I believe that even though the Torah is, right, written and with a quill and on a scroll or in a book, in the tongues of men, speaking of concepts that men can understand, saying things like eye of God, hand of God, finger of God, none of these things exist, but it's supposed to teach us something about the nature of existence, creation, and ourselves. As for religion stops us, I think that's when you need to kill the Buddha, right? The Zen koan, if you meet the Buddha on the road, kill him. It's like, yes, at first you should have a master. At first you should go maybe meticulously with the Torah. Right? And keep everything to the strictest degree, perhaps. And once you go on that path, and then if you meet the Buddha on the road, if you meet the teacher there, kill him. You don't need him. You can do your own thing. Now, far be it from me to say what people ought to do or not ought to do. To me, I really felt a calling to step away from very strict halacha. And I took my time, a very long time, to reason with myself and ask myself and answer myself on whether or not I'm doing it just to shirk responsibility, forsake the covenant, and do what I want to do in some awful attempt to become holier than thou, or to elevate myself all the while really, really just taking responsibility and the burden of Torah and the yoke of commandments off my shoulders. And I think that's not the case. So as for religions stop us, to some degree they might stop some people. They don't stop all people all the time. There are also the very pious and simple religious folk who get in and day out and try to do right by God as their religion dictates. And people may see it and be disgusted, and people may see it and think it's primitive, archaic, has no place in the world, it's only stopping us, it's a barrier, we need to evolve. But there's a reason why these religions, faiths, texts, there's a reason why they have stayed here. The ancient ones especially. I can't speak for the newer ones. The ancient ones have thousands of years to their credit, to their name, to their merit, and they're not perfect by any means, because it's a man-made thing primarily, for men, by men. It means that there's a lot of mankind just baked right into organized religion. And we are in a world of good and evil, of duality, post-Eden and pre-New Eden. And that sucks, but that's the way it is, where to some degree, yes, religion can stop you from evolving. And on the other hand, it depends what you are evolving towards. What is it that you are progressing to? Religion can also be a way, right? It says if somebody put a fence up, don't knock it down so easily. Don't knock it down so quickly. Don't be so fast to think, I don't need this. Don't chuck the baby out them bath waters. Sneezer says, I am actually a priest of the FSM, also in Dudism. So FSM, I don't know what that means, but Dudism, of course. You should. I'm glad you are ordained. The dude abides. Cece, hello Cece. There is no such wisdom flowing through the Holy Spirit that breathes and speaks through you. You feel sincere and sweet. There is no such wisdom. There is so much wisdom flowing through the Holy Spirit that breathes and speaks through you. You feel sincere and sweet. I appreciate the kind words, Cece. Where are you from? Where are you at? How's your evening or day going? Tell us something. Tell us of the Holy Spirit as you're perceiving it now, whether it's the Ruach HaKodesh or the Christian Holy Spirit. MC24, hello, good to see you, man. I know nothing about Torah or anything, but this is very interesting. Thanks. Hey, man, we're here. We are all learning at the same time here. That's part of what is so awesome about this little gathering that we have here every night. And on that note, it's an hour. I've been on for an hour, And what a great hour it's been. I do appreciate every single one of you, those who are watching now, those watching later, those in the chat, those who abstain, those who watch for a split second and run for the hills, those who, every sub, every view, every like. It's so much fun to engage with you good people. It really is. Splashfuzz says, Transformers, more than meets the eye. Sneezer says to MC, this is a very good place to get a global picture of it. Other places may be better for specifics. Splashfuzz says to MC, it's a beautiful collection of text. Read it. Sneezer says, the naked male form is proof of God's humor. Oh yeah, that's for damn sure. And femininity. Ella just stopped in to say hi. Hello, Ella. If you just stopped in, you're probably not here anymore, but thank you, Ella. Most appreciated. See, people who just dropped by to say hi and then had to leave. The fact that this channel and you good people and the wisdom and the knowledge, the experience, the discourse that you people bring to this little digital table is so wonderful that Ella just stops by to say hi and carries on her merry way. Just stumbled upon channel. Good, it's good to stumble upon things. That's how you arrive at things. What does Pooh the Bear say? What does Winnie the Pooh say?
It's water.
Anyway, it's... Yes.
I just tried it.
Waterproof. Okay, I'm assuming it's not very high quality, so take it with a grain of salt or hummus, which means that don't test it too much. You did it once, that's
I did
fine.
it once. I'll keep the-
It means perhaps it can be sprayed with a bit of water, but not immersed for a long time. Jay Summer, hi Jay, says, the things I come across, I believe in Yahweh and Yeshua. Sorry, I'm obviously late. Nobody is late. They arrive when they are meant to arrive.
They arrive at 1 a.m.
Well, if they arrive at 1 a.m., I've had chats until 2 a.m., not recently, in the Netherlands. Yeah, I had one chat that was just over 4 hours, and it was from like 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. No. Sneezer says, oh boy, we are already very nearly at an hour of chat. Yes, we are, and it's lovely. Shalom Rav says, Ezra, shalom to you.
You already are.
Ariel says, yes, but he said this 36 minutes ago in the chat. Many people like to claim that the Torah Genesis came from Babylon, but there is just as much, if not more, evidence that their version came from our Torah, or at least both stories developed along with all the Chinese whispers from a single source, Adam. All the Chinese whispers from a single... So wait, was that you reacting to the... Okay, I see, okay. And even that both originate from the Orients. I see, okay. So yeah, again, those ancient civilizations, those ancient traditions. Adam says, bro, do you offer Torah classes online? This is it. But I'm not a teacher, I'm not a scholar, I'm not a learned man, I'm not an educated man. I'm just a simple dumbass in the Middle East. And you should take every single thing I'm saying with a grain of hummus. And I don't, I don't proclaim anything or say that I know anything that others don't. I had someone in Philippines tell me Eden was originally local to them. Right, so there's the Gan Eden Elyon, Gan Eden Tachton, the higher and lower Eden, where one of them can actually be seen as a physical place that was connected like inextricably in a way that we can't perceive right now to that spiritual one, where, yes, the different rivers that flow, right? Meaning that a river came down from Eden to water the garden, and there it split into 4 streams. And that speaks of something here in this world. Kush, Africa, is mentioned in Genesis. So, something local to them, possibly. Possibly. Of course, I've heard the same about Florida. Ah ha ha ha. Florida. I've been there twice. I've been to Disney World. I didn't really go exploring. I was a kid, but it was... Oh my god, so much fun. So much fun. KJ says these are hilarious. Ariel Marshall says, Lyle? I don't know what that is. People claim that Judaism came from paganism when paganism came from Judaism is just as plausible, or they developed side by side. Yeah. HN, I see you very much in the belly, LOL. Yes, I am in the belly of that whale. Yes, I am. Feast of Tabernacles, correct. Feast of Booths, Feast of Tabernacles, Feast of Sukkot. Caesar says to Ariel, I see it more as both found the same patterns, independently confirming each other. Yeah, there's something to that. Hey now, he's learning how to read the endings. I'm learning how to read the endings? I said Wawa, Weewa, and I like. I like a you. I like a seg. It's nice. That wasn't my best Borat. Michael Corleone. La 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 la. Just when I thought I was out, pull me back in. Actually, 3 is my least favorite one. Even the later version, which matches more of Coppola's vision, it's better. Better than the theatrical release. Better than the cinema release. You know that there are 2 different part 3s? But I think number 1, I think Godfather, the original, is my favorite. Although, oh man, I can't decide between 1 and 2. De Niro, man. De Niro. And Pacino. And then seeing them together in Heat on the big screen so many years later. What are your thoughts on the current activities of Israel and the years of their history since 1948? Thanks. Well, I've grown up here, modern Orthodox Jewish in Jerusalem, Israel. So my thoughts on the current activities are the same as my thought at any given moment in the statehood of this state, right? Since 1948, which is that there is a lot that we're doing right, and there are some things we're doing horribly wrong, and it's why I stay away from politics and the different activities. I am aware that by the time it reaches me on the news, on the internet, wherever, it's propaganda at that point. By the time it reaches my eyes, it's propaganda, because I'm just one small civilian minding my own business, right? And I don't delve too deeply, and I'm not an analyst of any kind. I don't have the vision, the view. I mean, I don't have the mind to actually expand into the geopolitical nature of this place. And so my thoughts are very, very surface level. And that's what they are. They did a lot of things wrong and a lot of things right. And that's my thoughts on the current activities of Israel still. From the beginning, we've done a lot of good and probably a lot of bad. This is all still before he got online. Yom Revi'i Mutzlach u'Mevorach lekulanu, a blessed and bountiful Wednesday, a successful and blessed Wednesday. Am Yisrael Chai, the people of Israel live. Yes, we do. Yes, I have my ham amateur, says Bloodnose. That's nice. Yes, in most countries. Canada, very much yes. Wait, what's that referring to? Blessings from Ohio. Blessings to you, Smith. Speaking of humor, Jonathan, would you rather have a friend who is a close talker or a low talker? Oh, wow. A low talker. A low talker. Yeah, I think I'd rather have a low talker. No, you know what? No, I think oh, wow. See, this is the real crux of the matter right here. Low talker. Low talker. Bloodnose says, sweet, maybe we can ham once I get up. Bloodnose says, I went to the store to pick up 8 cans of Sprite. When I got home, I realized I'd only picked 7 up. That's lovely. Oh, whoops. Yes, America has a huge problem with family breakups, says Splash Fuzz. North America is basically pushing away from the family, Canada too. Oh, I'm sorry, that's what you meant. In most countries, Canada too. Accurate, says MC24. Oh, wait. Darn, the chat. Arg. It just went boop. Oh, man. Ah, there it is. Yes, that would be great, Sneezer, says Bloodnose. I'm sure we can make contact. I only have novice, so I'm only able to transmit on 10 meters. I think it began with pulsifying males, says Sneezer. Now, are you still talking about Ham, or are you talking about the origins of creation? Ariel says both found the same patterns, Sneezer. Oh, pulsifying males, gotcha. Story of creation, yes. Both seem to have found very similar words, names, language, and grammar also. That's very cool. Sneezer says to Bloodnose, you may have to upgrade to use a repeater, then hub to go through internet. Right, so ham radio is now through the internet. Of course it is, obviously. I gotta go now, says Splash Fuzz, but it's always great seeing you on Nazarite. I enjoy it. Thank you, and I enjoy your company. Your contributions are always welcome. Thanks for being here. Now go on! Get out of here! Well, this was 37 minutes ago, and wherever you are, Splash Fuzz, Yah be with you. Ariel says, truth in concepts tends to spread first by name. The author of It's Fun to Fart, or whatever it was, Dougie Brimson, no. No, that's not who I'm thinking of. Let's see, The Joy of Farting. I think that's what it was. It was an essay or a book on farting by one of the founding fathers, wasn't it? Hold on a second. A letter to the royal... Fart Proudly! Benjamin Franklin, an essay called Fart Proudly. That's what it is. Not The Joy of Farting, but there is The Joy of Farting. There is a joy of farting, and when my woman and I went to Amsterdam, not when we lived there, when we went there as tourists many years before, we went to the gift shop, in someplace in Amsterdam, to one of those tourist traps, and they had the big book, the little book of farting, a little tiny bathroom or coffee table book, all about farts, and it's lovely. I think we still have it somewhere. The cover is genuinely lovely. All these people holding their nose and someone, What's a load-bearing wall, XBMXers? If I'm not mistaken, a load-bearing wall is a wall which holds up a great weight of that which is on top of it and is able, therefore, to bear it and hold it. Without a load-bearing wall, the structure's integrity would be compromised. Michael Corleone, if Hamas is filth, that's fine. So if you are not biased with tunnel vision, then the government state of Israel is fifth as well. That's just history. Terrorist bullies for years taking West Bank's land. So, first of all, I'm of the opinion, and I've mentioned this before, that if we were actually able to get a guarantee, ironclad, will never be broken ever in a million years, or even infinity, if we were able to get a solemn promise that would actually take place and happen, that no nation will raise a sword or a hand or a cannon or a missile to us again, no war, no waging war on Israel, then I think I would consider even going somewhere else. However, that will never ever be the case. So, Hamas is filth, yes. I am not biased with tunnel vision, but I am biased with other things, having grown up here. So let's put that right out in the open. The government state of Israel is filth as well. It definitely is prone to some degree of corruption in the last few decades, more than since its origin. Not as much in its origin, and I think that the earlier leaders were more idealists in the positive way and, well, that's just history. Yes, history has Israel being bullies and terrorists, but that was under the British mandate, not now. The Israeli Defense Forces was made up of those very groups which were outlawed once the State of Israel came to be, and Tzahal was established that very day. The IDF was established that very day, effectively outlawing all of the other resistant terrorist armed groups. Right, Etzel, Lechi, Hagana, Irgun, basically. That's what became the army. And we have tried, perhaps to some people unsuccessfully, to keep international law, the military-wise. As for the government, I think, and again, I'm only a simple dumbass here, and I don't have the field of vision to really know what I'm talking about, but it seemed to me, as somebody growing up, let's say in the 80s and in the 90s, that there were politicians and statesmen and people who should have known better that put too much emphasis on settlements. Too much emphasis. Now, it could very well be that there is a security issue there so great that me even saying that is laughable, and that I don't know what I'm talking about. However, I perceived it in such a way in the 80s and the 90s, and retroactively kind of 80s, knowing what's going on, no, in the 80s as well, the later 80s as well. I was already old enough to know what's going on and listen to the news. And it just seemed to me that people were putting too much emphasis on the land and not enough emphasis on the people. The people of Israel, and the people and the people of Gaza and the people of the West Bank. And I'm saying that the only thing that I would agree with you there is that we are not terrorist bullies. We were perhaps terrorist bullies, but we were Palestinian then too. We were living under the British mandate of Palestine, carrying Palestinian passports. So we're Palestinian too. So we were bullying ourselves? Is that what you're saying? That makes zero sense. And taking West Bank's lands, I also refute by saying no. You don't take land if it's your land to begin with, then it's your land. And if you take it or you conquer it, that's not theft or being a bully or being a terrorist. However, I do say that it definitely should have been handled differently. Now here's the thing. If you're saying that we're taking the West Bank's lands, what about when Jordan controlled different areas? What about when Egypt controlled different areas? They could have established a Palestinian state at any given moment. They didn't. And then we take it in a war of defense, and you expect us to establish it? How does that make any sense? So the terrorist bullies here are the Islamist fundamentalist assholes who care more about death than they do about life. That's not to say anything that nothing is wrong with the state of Israel, with the army, with the government. Yes, many things are wrong, but there is more of it that's right than there is wrong. That's how I perceive it. And again, I may be biased and blind, I may be indoctrinated, so take whatever I say with a grain of salt. I know that Jewish terrorists are handled usually, not always, unfortunately, but usually they are very heavy-handed with them, the security forces. Shabbat, Shin Bet, has an entire division devoted to stopping Jewish terrorism, not because it's rampant, but because it does rear its head from time to time. Wonky Wednesdays, says Robert. Hey, you're back on the wonky. Shimon and Levi are brothers. Weapons of violence are their swords. Klei Hamas mecheloteim, right, that which they were given, that was sold to them, however you choose to look at it, their thing. But Shimon was more on the physical side, and Levi was more on the spiritual side, which is why Levi eventually sort of redeemed himself and the tribe as a result of it to some degree, and Shimon likewise later. Different people from Shimon were not the best. Oh, what was the use? I read what he did use. The use of creating us. What was the use? I read what did he use. So in his question there. Vishka's Vishka, right? Questioned that question. So there would be more to love. Just finished book of Jonah. Wow, so much lessons and emet. Yeah, the book of Jonah, man. Nowhere in the Tanakh is the word used as sword, cherev. No, it's not used as sword. It's used as something to do with buying, selling, origin, a place of origin. YouTube, says Michael Corleone. IDF soldiers breaking the silence. Jewish Israeli telling how they were terrorists. You will look at Israel different. You will look at Israel different. I am not about... No, I've heard of Shovrim Shtika, breaking the silence. And as for people who were terrorists, individuals can be terrorists. The question is at the behest of the government? Is at the behest of the commanders in the army? There are certain orders which you are not allowed to carry out, even if you are given them by your superior officer. Not allowed to carry out. And if such things happen, then the army shoves its big military boot up your ass. Because you're not allowed to do that. There are certain things which you are not allowed, certain orders which you are not allowed to execute, according to Tzahal itself. As for seeing Israel differently, look, my eyes may not be wide open, and that's by choice, but they are relatively open, which is why I said, by the time things arrive at my doorstep or screen or I don't know what, figurative doorstep, it's already propaganda. It's already been censored and tailored for me to elicit a reaction, a certain view, to confirm a bias, whatever the case may be. And I know for a fact, having served in the army, mandatory service, and until a few years ago in reserve duty, I can't tell you about the IDF at large. I can tell you about me, my platoon, my regiment. That's what I know. That's what I've known for over 20 years. Or about 20 years, until I was discharged. And if I should have to go back, then, if they'll call me back, then I'll go again. Those who were terrorists were around before as a group, as like an established group. Those were the groups that were later outlawed, and they did not have any dealings of terrorism with the Arab or Muslim population, as far as I know. They had skirmishes with them, but they didn't target them. They targeted the British mandate. So you can't bring the old terrorism. As for the new terrorists, and I don't doubt that there are some individuals in the civilian population, in the soldiery, that are indeed terrorists. I don't deny that. I don't doubt it either. But they are individuals. It's not a group. It's not an organization. Now on to Ovadia, says Robert.
Although,
Yes.
but I'm for an hour and 22 minutes.
Correct, I have. Speaking of which, I realized earlier again how much I enjoy working on bikes. It gives me such purpose. I enjoy it even or almost more than riding BMX itself, or maybe a little more. Difficult to measure and say. Hey, you know what? You should give it thought of maybe starting a bike shop at some point down the road, because you speak of it, you love it, it's your YouTube channel, and if you like working on bikes, and you like working with your hands, and you get satisfaction and purpose and meaning with it, then almost as much as riding the bicycle itself, I think that you should hearken that call. You should listen to that voice. Did you know Ovadia was an Edomite? I think so. I think I did know that. Or something about Ovadia. I mean, he speaks to Esav right at the beginning, right? He says, if I'm not mistaken, it's Ovadia, where he says, you put your nest up like an eagle, but God will tear you down because you are really, really a small and pitiable creature. Or a small and pitiable nation. Right? Katonet aticha bagoyim bazui ata meod. If I'm not mistaken. Right? Your heart, I may be thinking of a different prophet, right? Your heart has lifted you up, and you have an ego about you, but really, be humble. Sit down. Yod says, I think sword became an encoding with Jesus. Oh, Sneezer says to Yodidiao, and it meant truth, fire, word. Can you speak on Essenes? Was Jesus an Essene? So, first of all, the Essenes were a sect of the Jewish people living in the kingdom of Judah during the time of the Second Temple era. At some point, they decided they could not contend with what was going on in Jerusalem and the surrounding areas. They retired to the Judean desert. The Essenes were a group of, some say, Nazarites. Some say that they took a Nazarite vow. I know one or two Essene Nazarites who consider themselves part of the Essenes and who took on the Nazarite vow as Essenes. I don't think that there's a specific synagogue, shul, temple, or community to speak of in Israel. There could very well be Essenes, communities of Essenes abroad, outside of the land of Israel, possibly even in Israel, but I don't think so. The Essenes were seen as Jewish, but a little problematic, according to the sages, the Pharisees, Chazal, however you choose, right? The rabbinic sages. As for was Jesus an Essene, I don't know, because I don't follow Jesus. I don't know what people say about him. I think that there is a chance that if he was an Essene, then it makes sense that he would have been preaching from the Judean desert, or around the Judean desert. The Essenes would make the pilgrimage to the temple 3 times a year, and they would go if they had individual offerings to bring, right, to the altar. But basically, they didn't like what was going on, and so they kind of became more secluded. To be an Essene, you had to join the community, and first you had to go through a kind of apprenticeship. And only later, was it a year or 2 or 3? I don't recall. A year, between a year and 3 years. You had to sort of be there with them, and then you would be welcomed as part of the group. So that's what I remember offhand about isims. In Hebrew, it's isim, and in English, it's isims with an N. And, as I've said, I thought that they hadn't gone away from the world, but I've been in touch with a few who consider themselves to be Essenes. Now, it could be that it made a comeback. It could be that there were always Essenes, but in a small number, like Nazarites, right? Not a lot of them, but they are around and always have been. Love from India, says Priyanchi Bordol. What does your name mean, Priyanchi Bordol, if it is a name? And thank you. Much love from Israel. Much love. Odin Wotan Bjornson's side, says BMXers. Okay. I get it, says Michael Corleone. You live in Israel and you are going to back them. That's fine. As long as you acknowledge the facts and truths that Israel is a bully terrorist state. Well, no, I'm not going to acknowledge that. I'm going to say it's a very good and kind state that sometimes, especially the individuals, not as a collective, not as a form of government or a military, no, not bully terrorists. I do not concur with that. I don't consider it to be fact and truth. What is true is that sometimes, because we are mortal, we can be terrorist bullies. But I believe that the bully terrorists are an individual thing and not a regiment, not a company, not a platoon, nothing. It's individuals. As for terrorism is defined as the use of force, right, in order to, well, not the dictionary definition, but it's using force in order to have your way. And if we had to resort to those tactics, it's not because we are a bully terrorist state, it's because we are surrounded by enemies who would love nothing more than to get rid of us pretty much by any means. But they don't have the means. Or they do have them, but we have greater means. Sneezer says to CC, it's hard to assign group to the only one born to virgin. Rara had a message retracted. Okay. All right. I am going to say goodbye. It's been almost an hour and a half. God willing, tomorrow will be Thursday. And I will see you tomorrow, 9 p.m. Israel time. I love doing this so much. Thanks to all of you, the newcomers and the regulars and those in between. I don't take it for granted. You take time out of your busy day, your schedule, whether you're watching it live or you're watching it later, in order to have this conversation, this dialogue. Every like, every sub, every comment, every chat, it's on this video or a different video. It's so much fun. It enlivens me. It gives me something to, more things rather, to look forward to in the evening. I don't know what the future holds, but these last few months of going Sunday through Thursday have been so good, so good. And I love the fact that I just dove right into it after not broadcasting regularly for months. To just dive right into it, and I can see from the feedback I'm getting and the engagement I'm getting and the views I'm getting that it's something that is good for me and for you guys out there. So I deeply appreciate it. I don't take it for granted. You are awesome. I love talking to you. I love learning from you, your knowledge, your experience, your wisdom, your lore. It's a wonder to behold, especially when it unfolds here in real time. So even if the chat isn't in real time because I'm stopping and I'm reading the comments, you know what? Here, I'll read the final comment. Remember to like, subscribe, said Sneezer. Well, on that note, good night from Jerusalem. Good night. May it be a blessed and wonderful night.